Dr. Alexandra Mitchell's environmental suit whirred softly as she stepped through the quantum sanitization field marking the entrance to Station Harmonious. The crystalline chamber stretched before her, its liquid metal floors rippling with each footstep of the gathered delegates. Above, the artificial starfield ceiling mapped real-time positions of every member world's home system, creating a dazzling display of political power through astronomical beauty. The Galactic Concordat's 1000th anniversary summit had drawn representatives from 200 spacefaring civilizations, each more exotic than the last. To her left, a cluster of luminary minds floated as pure energy contained within ornate metallic frameworks, their thoughts manifesting as subtle color shifts in the air around them. To her right, the silicon synchronicity moved as a collective of crystalline beings, their faceted bodies refracting light in hypnotic patterns. Observe, a melodious voice chimed in what humans called high galactic. The carbon-based still requires atmospheric isolation. The comet came from Delegate Vexra, a towering figure of plasma contained within a near-invisible force field. Several nearby representatives flickered their bioluminescent appendages in what Alexandra's diplomatic training identified as the alien equivalent of derisive laughter. She adjusted her helmet's clear faceplate, letting them see her smile. The suit wasn't just for life support. It housed more computing power than most small starships, though the elder races didn't need to know that. Yet, a quantum collective representative, their consciousness spread across a network of floating orbital nodes, drifted closer. We find it curious that your species attempts participation in galactic politics when you have achieved faster-than-light travel for merely 3 decades. Perhaps observer status would be more appropriate. Thank you for your concern, Alexandra replied, her voice modulated perfectly through her suit's external speakers. But Earth believes in facing challenges directly. It's something of a species trait. The gathering chimes signaled the summit's official opening. The liquid metal floor beneath them shifted, raising some sections and lowering others to create a natural amphitheater facing the central podium. The elder races, naturally, claimed the highest positions, their various forms of bioluminescence creating an aurora of moving light that highlighted their self-appointed superiority. High Minister Excelthor of the Quantum Ascendancy materialized at the podium, his consciousness temporarily condensed into a humanoid shape out of what Alexandra assumed was diplomatic courtesy. We gather to celebrate a millennium of enlightened cooperation, his thoughts translated directly into comprehensible speech. 1,000 cycles of guiding younger races toward civilization. Alexandra's suit cameras captured every subtle reaction as the minister's gaze swept over the assembled delegates. The younger races lowered their various sensory organs in deference, while the elder species preened in their assumed glory. Her quantum processors tagged and categorized each interaction, building a complex web of political relationships that would prove invaluable later. And we welcome our newest petitioners, Selfor continued, his form flickering with what Alexandra's cultural database tagged as barely concealed amusement. The humans of Earth who have bravely ventured forth from their singular planet, protected by their fascinating containment technology. More ripples of bioluminescent laughter. Alexandra maintained her diplomatic smile, even as her suit's sensors recorded every frequency of light, every quantum fluctuation, every subtle energy emission that betrayed the elder race's true attitudes. They saw her environmental suit as a symbol of human weakness. They didn't realize it was recording everything. We look forward to learning from the Concordat's extensive experience. Alexandra spoke, her words carefully measured. The suit's external sensors registered the patronizing approval from the assembled dignitaries. Perfect. Let them think Earth was another primitive species seeking guidance from their betters. Let them dismiss the quantum processors hidden within her primitive life support system. Let them laugh at the human who needed protection from the station's atmosphere. The liquid metal floor rippled again, guiding delegates toward their assigned discussion groups. Alexandra noted, but didn't protest, when she was directed toward a lower tier with other developing species. As she descended, her suit's hidden systems continued their work, gathering data, analyzing patterns, and preparing for the moment when humanity would show the galaxy exactly why underestimating Earth was the greatest diplomatic mistake in 1,000 years of Concordat history. The Harmonia Station's grand feast hall defied traditional physics. Crystalline tables floated at varying heights, each surrounded by atmosphere bubbles calibrated to specific species requirements. Alexandra's environmental suit processed the cacophony of smells from 200 different cuisines, filtering them into recognizable patterns her human brain could process without overwhelming her senses. "Welcome to the development section," chirped a hovering translation drone, guiding her to a lower-tier table. The designation was clear. This was where the Concordat seated its charity cases. Alexandra noted the other occupants. The methane-breathing chlorids, their green-tinted environment spheres clustering together. The newly spacefaring Nexus minds, their mechanical bodies humming with barely controlled excitement. And the Silicon Wanderers, their crystalline forms dimmed with what she recognized as embarrassment. "At least they gave us real food this time," muttered Representative Kittle of the Chlorids, their words translated through Alexandra's suit systems. "Last cycle, they synthesized everything, claiming our primitive digestive systems needed protection." Alexandra adjusted her position at the table, her suit automatically compensating for the varying gravity fields. "Interesting. The Concordat seems very concerned with protection." She activated her suit's specialized recording systems as servants began delivering the feast courses. The Silicon Wanderer to her left shifted its crystalline structure to form a communication pattern. "They protected us right out of our primary mining rights in the Carina sector, said our techniques were dangerously unstable and needed supervision. Supervision that came with quite a price tag, I imagine." Alexandra asked, carefully consuming her synthesized protein through her suit's feeding system. The other species at the table grew still, the particular stillness of those who had just realized someone spoke their unvoiced thoughts aloud. The Nexus Mind representative leaned forward, mechanical appendages moving with deliberate precision. "Our star drive designs required 3 separate safety certifications. Each review doubled in cost. When we couldn't pay, they generously offered technology loans. Loans with interesting terms, no doubt," Alexandra commented, her suit's sensors detecting increased agitation in the energy signatures of nearby elder race representatives. They were monitoring the conversation, but trying to appear disinterested. Till's methane atmosphere swirled agitatedly. "The interest rates adjust based on our developmental progress, which they measure. We're now paying 60% of our system's resource output to service the debt." Alexandra's suit cameras captured the subtle reactions from the elder race's table above them. The quantum collective's nodes pulsed with satisfaction, while the luminary's energy patterns flickered with what her systems tagged as amused contempt. "Earth has been offered similar guidance," Alexandra shared, carefully selecting a portion of what appeared to be crystallized starlight. "They suggest our fusion technology needs extensive modification. The proposed improvements would require us to purchase stabilizing elements found only in elder race territories." The Silicon Wanderer's crystalline surface rippled with recognition. "Let me guess, they offered to handle the extraction themselves. For safety reasons. With very reasonable payment terms," Alexandra confirmed, her smile hidden behind her faceplate. "Coincidentally, the same terms would grant them oversight of our asteroid mining operations." A Nexus Mind's optical sensors flashed in a pattern indicating distress. "We'd noticed similar patterns but found no legal recourse. The Concordat's laws are complex," Alexandra suggested, "written in multiple-dimensional legal language that requires elder race translation matrices to properly interpret." The table fell silent as a group of luminary representatives drifted past, their energy forms casting disapproving shadows over the developing species section. Alexandra's suit recorded the subtle pressure wave variations in their wake, pressure waves that her sensors suggested could easily disrupt certain species' technological functions. "Perhaps," Alexandra continued once the elder races moved out of translated audio range, We should discuss how different species interpret these complex laws. Earth's historical archives contain fascinating examples of how seemingly simple legal phrases can have profound implications. The other representatives' various sensory organs focused on her with sudden intensity. Her suit's emotional analysis subroutines detected a spike in hope patterns across multiple species' biological signatures. We would be very interested in comparing legal interpretation methodologies. The Silicon Wanderer said carefully, its crystalline structure aligned in a way that blocked casual observation from above. Purely as an academic exercise, of course. Of course, Alexandra agreed, her suit's quantum processors already correlating the gathered data with historical records. After all, what harm could come from a few developing species discussing legal theory over dinner? Above them, the elder races continued their self-congratulatory celebration, unaware that their carefully constructed web of control was about to entangle them in ways they never imagined. The resource allocation chamber gleamed with holographic star maps, each pinpoint of light representing valuable mining territories. Alexandra stood at the petitioner's podium, her environmental suit's systems working overtime to process the overlapping quantum data streams. Earth's request for mining rights in the Orion Spur seemed simple enough. A mere 17 systems, all uninhabited. High Minister Xelthor's quantum matrix shimmered as he materialized before the assembly. His consciousness, spread across countless quantum nodes, coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape that towered over the podium. We have reviewed Earth's petition for resource extraction rights, his thoughts translated into audible speech. Our findings are concerning. Alexandra's suit sensors detected the subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere as the elder races adjusted their positions for better viewing angles. They knew what was coming. This was theater, carefully choreographed to put humanity in its place. If the honorable minister would share these concerns, Alexandra said, her voice steady despite the growing pressure in the room. Earth stands ready to address them. Xelthor's form expanded, encompassing the central display area. Observe. The chamber's holographic systems activated, creating a perfect simulation of one of the requested star systems. Alexandra's suit cameras captured every detail as the scene unfolded. A human mining vessel, its design deliberately rendered to look more primitive than actual Earth ships, approaching an asteroid field. Your species proposed extraction methods. Xelthor continued, his tone dripping with artificial concern, demonstrate a dangerous lack of understanding regarding stellar mechanics. In the simulation, the human ship deployed mining equipment. Alexandra's sensors immediately detected the mathematical impossibilities being introduced into the scenario, subtle enough that most species wouldn't notice, but completely changing the outcome. Within 3 standard cycles of implementing your proposed methods, Xelthor announced, as the simulation showed the star system's delicate gravitational balance beginning to collapse, the entire region would destabilize. The holographic star bloated red, then collapsed, taking the surrounding systems with it. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber as the simulation showed the devastating aftermath. Alexandra's suit recorded it all, especially the impossible physics used to create the fraudulent demonstration. This is, of course, merely one possible outcome, Xelthor said, his quantum form pulsing with what Alexandra's cultural database tagged as false sympathy. But the risk is too great. The Concordat must protect the galaxy's resources from premature exploitation. Ambassador Vexra's plasma form flared in agreement, perhaps if humans spent another century studying proper stellar engineering principles, under supervision, naturally. Alexandra felt the weight of 200 species' attention. The younger races watched with sympathy, having endured similar humiliations. The elder races waited for Earth's representative to accept their judgment with appropriate gratitude for their wisdom. Instead, she smiled behind her faceplate. Earth appreciates the Concordat's thorough analysis, she said, her words measured and clear. However, we notice several discrepancies in the simulation's basic physics model that warrant discussion. Her suit's external display activated, highlighting specific points in the still-floating hologram. For instance, the gravitational calculations shown here violate 3 fundamental laws of physics that the Concordat itself codified 200 years ago. Laws that every spacefaring race must acknowledge as true to achieve membership. The chamber grew unnaturally quiet. Zelthor's quantum form flickered briefly, a sign of agitation. Furthermore, Alexandra continued, her suit's systems projecting the relevant data streams. The stellar mechanics demonstrated here contradict the Concordat's own mining guidelines, published last cycle. Guidelines that, according to public records, were written by High Minister Zelthor himself. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Earth formally requests a full technical review of this simulation, as is our right under Article 7 of the Scientific Truth in Governance Act. We also request access to the original simulation parameters for independent verification. The elder race's bioluminescence patterns shifted from smugness to uncertainty. They hadn't expected this primitive human to challenge their authority with their own laws and science. Such a review would take considerable time, Zelthor said, his quantum matrix condensing defensively. Perhaps it would be better to simply withdraw the petition. Earth stands by its request, Alexandra replied, her suit's sensors detecting increased communication activity among the elder races. Unless, of course, the Concordat wishes to formally acknowledge that its own published physics standards are incorrect. The trap was set. Either they admitted to falsifying the simulation, or they had to grant Earth access to their most closely guarded technical databases to prove they hadn't. Alexandra could feel the ripple of realization moving through the chamber as other species began to understand the implications. High Minister Zelthor's form flickered once more before announcing, "The chamber will recess to consider Earth's request for technical review." The artificial night cycle of Station Harmonious cast a pale blue glow through Alexandra's quarters. Her environmental suit stood in its maintenance dock, running diagnostics, while she sat surrounded by floating holographic displays. Her eyes burned from the radiation protective drops, but she couldn't stop reading. Not now. Not when she was so close. Computer, cross-referenced the stellar Concordat's founding documents with enforcement records from the past 5 centuries, she commanded. The quantum processors hummed as they sorted through the massive data stream she'd legally requested after the mining rights debacle. The station's night cycle warning chimed its 3rd alert. Most species would be in their rest periods now. Perfect. Alexandra had specifically requested quarters in the lower diplomatic section, where the elder races would never deign to visit. Their arrogance made them predictable. Pattern match found, the computer announced, displaying correlation between species development index and resource access protocols. Alexandra leaned forward, her tired eyes widening. There it was, hidden in plain sight. Every 5 cycles, like clockwork, a developing species would rise to the point of questioning the Concordat's authority. And every time, they would mysteriously withdraw their objections. "Show me the Silicon Collective's last diplomatic transmission," she requested. The holographic display shifted, showing the final message from a species that had once been poised to revolutionize quantum computing. Their withdrawal statement was perfect, too perfect. Analyze linguistic patterns of all species withdrawal notices over the past 300 years. The computer processed the request, compiling data into a 3-dimensional matrix. Alexandra's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her stimulant pack. This was her 4th dose, far more than recommended, but she couldn't rest, not when the evidence was finally coming together. Linguistic analysis complete, the computer reported. 97% probability that all withdrawal statements were written by the same author. Alexandra smiled grimly. Cross-reference with known Concordat legal document authors. The answer appeared instantly. High Minister Zelthor's quantum signature was embedded in every withdrawal notice, hidden beneath layers of diplomatic formatting. The same being who had tried to humiliate Earth today had been silencing rising species for centuries. "Now show me the original Charter's Article 1. Section 3 Interpretation Guidelines. The display shifted again, revealing the complex legal text. Alexandra had studied Earth's historical legal documents extensively, noting how simple phrases could carry immense power when properly leveraged. The Concordat's charter was written in quantum legalese, supposedly requiring elder race translation matrices to properly interpret. But they hadn't counted on humanity's quantum computing achievements they'd carefully hidden beneath the pretense of primitive technology. Computer, apply Earth Standard Legal Protocol Analysis to the Charter's Foundational Rights section. Warning messages flashed across her displays. The processing power required for this analysis would be noticeable to station security. Alexandra quickly activated the quantum interference generator hidden in her suit's maintenance dock. To any observers, it would appear her systems were simply running standard diagnostic cycles. The results began populating her screen. With each new data point, Alexandra's smile grew wider. The Concordat's entire legal framework rested on a fundamental contradiction, one that the elder races had exploited while assuming no primitive species would ever be capable of understanding the complex quantum legal principles involved. Save all analysis results using human encryption protocols, she ordered. The data compressed into a secure quantum state that even the elder race's vaunted technology couldn't crack. Not without admitting they'd been lying about their level of quantum computing advancement. Dawn warning chimes began to sound throughout the station. Alexandra quickly shut down her displays, her mind racing with the implications of what she'd discovered. The evidence was irrefutable, but timing would be crucial. She needed one more piece to complete the puzzle. Computer, show me the Concordat's emergency session protocols. The display showed exactly what she'd hoped. During the renewal of Enlightened Authority ceremony, any member species could call for an immediate full assembly review of charter violations, a ceremony scheduled for tomorrow. Alexandra finally allowed herself to rest, but not before sending a specially encrypted message to Earth's quantum relay station. Package prepared. Checkmate in sight. As she drifted off to sleep, she smiled at the irony. The elder races had spent centuries building their web of power on the assumption that primitive species could never understand their quantum legal frameworks. They never considered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in understanding quantum mechanics, but in recognizing patterns of injustice. Tomorrow, they would learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate human determination. The renewal of Enlightened Authority ceremony transformed Station Harmonious into a cascade of light and energy. Quantum crystals pulsed with ancestral power, while plasma streams wove complex patterns through the grand chamber. Alexandra stood before the assembly hall's entrance, her environmental suit gleaming under the ceremonial lights. Dr. Mitchell, High Minister Xelthor's quantum form, materialized beside her, his tone carrying artificial warmth. Surely you don't intend to interrupt our most sacred ceremony with, what did you call it? A technical review. Alexandra's suit cameras captured the subtle energy fluctuations in his quantum matrix, signs of concern hidden beneath the condescension. The Concordat's laws are clear, Minister. Any member species may call for charter review during the renewal. Earth merely exercises its rights. Rights. Ambassador Vexor's plasma form flared as she approached. You speak of rights while wearing primitive life support technology. Perhaps you should focus on developing better environmental systems before questioning Concordat authority. Alexandra's suit sensors detected increased communication activity between the elder race's quantum networks. They were worried, though trying hard not to show it. My suit serves its purpose, Ambassador, just as this ceremony serves yours. The massive doors began their ceremonial opening sequence, crystalline structures flowing like liquid light. The assembled species arranged themselves according to their ancient hierarchies. Energy beings highest, followed by quantum entities, then plasma forms, down to what they considered lesser physical manifestations. Alexandra took her assigned position in the lower tiers, her suit's sensors working overtime to record every detail. The luminary representatives above her pulsed with smug satisfaction at her placement. The younger species around her shifted uncomfortably, remembering their own failed attempts at challenging the status quo. High Minister Excelthor assumed his position at the central podium, his quantum form expanding to fill the ceremonial space. For 1,000 cycles, the Concordat has guided the development of countless species. Today, we renew our sacred duty to shepherd the galaxy's children toward enlightenment. Alexandra's hand moved to her suit's control panel. The elder races had positioned her perfectly, at the exact spot where Concordat law required all species to have clear viewing angles of any formal challenges. They thought they were following tradition. They were actually giving her the perfect stage. Through our wisdom, Selthor continued, we prevent the chaos of unrestricted technological advancement. Through our guidance, we ensure stable cultural development. Through our point of charter review, Alexandra's voice cut through the chamber, amplified by both law and acoustics. Her suit's external speakers carried her words in perfect high galactic, while her hidden quantum processors prepared to interface with the chamber systems. The assembly froze. In 1,000 years, no species had ever interrupted the renewal ceremony. The elder race's bioluminescence patterns shifted from shock to outrage. You dare! Vexra's plasma form writhed with barely contained fury. This ceremony is sacred, and the charter is law. Alexandra replied, her words echoing through the suddenly silent chamber. Article 7. Section 12 explicitly states that any recognized species may call for review during moments of collective witness. Is Earth recognized? Minister Excelthor. The High Minister's quantum form flickered with trapped frustration. He had personally pushed for Earth's recognition, thinking it would make humans easier to control. Earth is recognized, he admitted. Then I exercise our right to address the full assembly. Alexandra stepped forward, her suit's systems engaging with the chamber's communication matrix. And as per charter law, all species must bear witness. The elder races couldn't stop her without violating their own sacred laws. Around the chamber, Alexandra's suit detected increased neural activity among the younger species. They sensed something momentous was about to happen. Very well. Zelthor's voice carried barely concealed venom. Speak your piece, human. Then we will discuss the consequences of this interruption. Alexandra smiled behind her faceplate as her suit's quantum processors synchronized with the chamber systems. Everything was perfectly aligned. The audience, the timing, the legal framework. The elder races had spent centuries building their house of cards on a foundation of quantum legal complexity. Time to show them how humanity dealt with bullies who hid behind fancy words. Alexandra's environmental suit hummed with barely contained power as her quantum processors interfaced with the chamber systems. Above her, the artificial starfield ceiling reflected the positions of every member world, a cosmic display of the Concordat's reach. Before her, 200 species waited in tense silence. Honored representatives of the Galactic Concordat, she began, her voice clear and steady. Earth stands before you not to challenge authority, but to uphold it. Not to break laws, but to enforce them. Her suit's external cameras captured the subtle reactions, the elder race's dismissive energy patterns, the younger species' cautious hope, High Minister Excelthor's quantum matrix pulsing with barely concealed contempt. For 1,000 cycles, Alexandra continued, we have heard of the Concordat's dedication to justice, to equality, to the fair development of all species. She paused, letting her words echo through the chamber. Today, we put those claims to the test. With precise timing, her suit's systems activated the chamber's primary display matrix. The holographic space above the assembly filled with ancient text, the original Concordat Charter, its quantum legal script glowing in every known language. Article 1. Section 3 of the founding charter states, and I quote, no race shall claim supremacy through age or achievement, for the galaxy's wisdom flows through all its children equally. High Minister Excelthor's form flickered with sudden unease. These are sacred words, human. Choose your next ones carefully. Alexandra's smile remained hidden behind her faceplate as her suit's processors projected the next set of data. Let us examine how the Concordat has honored these words. Display Protocol Index Alpha. The holographic space filled with statistics, trade agreements, and development restrictions, all legally obtained through her earlier requests. In the past century alone, elder race corporations have claimed 97% of all new mining rights. Development assistance loans carry interest rates that mathematically ensure eternal dependency. Technology sharing programs systematically restrict crucial advances. These measures protect developing species from their own mistakes, Ambassador Vexera interjected, her plasma form flaring defensively. Protection. Alexandra's voice carried a sharp edge now. Computer, display the Silicon Collective's final transmission. The hologram shifted, showing the mysterious withdrawal message that had puzzled so many. Analysis confirms this message carries High Minister Xelthor's quantum signature, as do all similar withdrawals from species who questioned Concordat authority. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Alexandra's suit projected more evidence. The same quantum signature appears in denied development applications, restricted trade zones, and technology embargoes, all justified under the guise of protection, all enforcing artificial hierarchies that your own charter explicitly forbids. You dare accuse. Xelthor began, but Alexandra cut him off with the most dangerous weapon in her arsenal, truth. I dare to read your own laws as they are written, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Article 1. Section 3 doesn't suggest equality. It demands it. By the Concordat's own highest laws, every policy of restricted development, every claim of elder race supremacy, every act of technological gatekeeping is not merely unjust. It is illegal. The chamber erupted in chaos. Younger species burst into urgent discussions while elder races tried to maintain order. Alexandra's suit cameras captured it all, broadcasting the reactions across every diplomatic channel. If this assembly truly honors its laws, she continued, her voice cutting through the din, then by the Charter's own words, every treaty, every trade agreement, every development restriction based on species age or achievement is null and void, including the ones that keep your military fleets in power. High Minister Xelthor's quantum form expanded threateningly. You would destroy 1,000 years of order. No, Minister. You did that yourself, the moment you chose to violate your own highest law. Alexandra's suit projected one final piece of evidence, the mathematical proof that the Concordat's entire power structure rested on policies that contradicted its founding principles. Earth doesn't seek to destroy order. We seek to restore it. True order based on the equal justice your own charter demands. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The elder races couldn't deny her logic without invalidating their own laws. They couldn't suppress her evidence without proving her point about their true nature, and they couldn't silence her without violating the very ceremony they held sacred. One human, in one primitive environmental suit, had just outmaneuvered 1,000 years of quantum legal complexity with a single irrefutable truth. Their own words condemned them. The grand chamber of Station Harmonious descended into beautiful chaos. Energy beings pulsed with frantic patterns, quantum matrices destabilized, and plasma forms flickered through spectrums of agitation. Alexandra's suit cameras recorded everything as 1,000 years of carefully maintained order crumbled. The human speaks truth. A crystalline voice cut through the pandemonium. All eyes turned to the upper tiers where a Silicon Collective representative shimmered into visibility, their quantum stealth systems deactivating. We discovered the same legal contradiction 3 centuries ago. The elder races threatened to collapse our quantum networks if we didn't withdraw our challenge. High Minister Xelthor's form sparked with uncontrolled energy. This is sedition. Guards, remove. Remove who, Minister? Alexandra's voice carried pure steel. The Silicon Collective for exercising their charter-given right to speak, or Earth for quoting your own laws. Either action would only further prove our point about selective justice. More species began breaking centuries of silence. The Chlorids revealed hidden records of technology suppression. The Nexus minds shared data about manipulated trade agreements. Each revelation sparked another, building into an unstoppable cascade of truth. Our analysis indicates 98% of all technology restriction policies directly violate Article 1. Section 3. A young quantum intelligence announced their networks processing the data Alexandra had made public. The mathematical proof is irrefutable. Ambassador Vexor's plasma form surged toward Alexandra. You primitive, ungrateful. Her movement stopped abruptly as hundreds of recording devices focused on her. Any action against Earth's representative now would be diplomatic suicide. Interesting choice of words, Ambassador. Alexandra said calmly. Primitive, ungrateful. The very language your charter forbids using to claim supremacy. Would you like to rephrase that for the official record? The Chamber's quantum archives were working overtime, recording every word, every reaction, every admission. The elder races couldn't stop it without shutting down the sacred ceremony's own documentation protocols. The Concordat runs on law. Alexandra continued, her suit's systems broadcasting to every diplomatic channel. You've spent centuries building those laws into an impenetrable quantum maze, but you forgot something crucial about humanity. She turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. We've spent our own history fighting systems of oppression. We know that complex laws can hide simple injustice, and we know that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't technology or force. It's simply speaking truth to power. From the lower tiers, a wave of agreement swept through the younger species. The Nexus minds began broadcasting unity signals. The Silicon Collective fully decloaked their hidden representatives. The Chlorids released their suppressed technological innovations into the public record. Order. High Minister Xelthor's quantum form expanded, trying to reassert control. This assembly will what? Alexandra's question sliced through his bluster. Punish us for following the law. Silence us for quoting your charter. Every action you take now either validates our claims or violates your own highest principles. You've built your power on a paradox, Minister. The harder you try to maintain control, the more you prove you never should have had it. The elder race's communication networks were in chaos. Their carefully constructed hierarchy was collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. Some already began making hasty diplomatic overtures to their former, lesser species, trying to secure favorable positions in whatever new order emerged. The Concordat can survive this, Alexandra announced, her voice carrying hope rather than threat. But only if it becomes what it always claimed to be, a true alliance of equals. Earth extends an open hand to any species willing to build that future together. The response was immediate. Quantum signatures, plasma traces, and digital signatures began flooding the diplomatic channels as species after species signaled their support. The younger races were finally finding their voice, and that voice was becoming a roar. High Minister Xelthor's form had shrunk to a fraction of its former size. You cannot possibly understand the complexities of managing galactic civilization. He tried one last time. Alexandra's smile was audible in her voice. No single species can, Minister. That's rather the point. Now shall we begin discussing the terms of a truly equal concordat, one that lives up to its own founding principles. The chamber's artificial starfield ceiling seemed to pulse with new energy as the assembly realized they were witnessing not just the end of an old order, but the birth of a new one. The elder races had spent centuries building walls with quantum legal code. It took one human, armed with nothing but truth and determination, to bring those walls crashing down. The reconstruction of the Galactic Concordat took 30 standard days. Station Harmonious hummed with continuous activity as representatives from 200 species worked to rebuild their civilization on a foundation of true equality. Alexandra stood at her familiar podium, environmental suit gleaming under the artificial starlight, as the final votes were tallied. The results are certified. announced the newly established Council of Equal Voices, its membership drawn from species of all technological levels. The reformed Concordat Charter has been ratified by unanimous consent. High Minister Excelthor, now simply Representative Excelthor, watched from his newly assigned seat, his quantum form considerably diminished. The elder races had fought hard to maintain some vestiges of their privilege, but each attempt had been met with their own laws quoted back to them. "Let the record show," Alexandra began, her voice carrying the weight of history, "that the first act of the reformed Concordat is to abolish all technology restriction protocols based on species age or development level." The Silicon Collective's representatives shimmered with joy as they immediately began sharing their quantum computing breakthroughs. The Chlorids released their advanced terraforming techniques. The Nexus Minds uploaded their revolutionary AI safety protocols to the public database. The second act, continued Ambassador Vexera, her plasma form now glowing with genuine respect rather than condescension, releases all predatory development loans and establishes the Mutual Growth Fund, where all species contribute and benefit equally. Alexandra's suit cameras captured the moment as former elder races and developing species signed technology exchange agreements as equals. The artificial star field above them rearranged itself, no longer displaying hierarchy, but showing the intricate web of cooperation forming between worlds. Humanity's contribution to the fund will be our expertise in overcoming technological barriers, Alexandra announced. Earth pledges to share its complete database of solutions developed under resource constraints. Sometimes, necessity breeds innovation that abundance never could. The Chamber's quantum archives recorded each species adding their own unique perspectives and solutions. The Nexus Minds revealed how they developed superior algorithms precisely because they couldn't rely on raw processing power. The Chlorids demonstrated how their resource limitations had led to breakthroughs in efficiency. The reformed Concordat recognizes that true strength lies in diversity, the Council declared. Each species' unique challenges have forged unique solutions. Together, we are greater than the sum of our parts. Representative Excelthor's quantum form shifted forward. "We acknowledge our errors," he said, humility replacing his former arrogance. "The elder races confused age with wisdom, achievement with worth. Earth has taught us that true civilization is measured not by its age, but by its capacity for growth and change." Alexandra smiled behind her faceplate as her suit's systems recorded what many had thought impossible: the voluntary surrender of privilege in favor of genuine partnership. The younger species were already proving their worth, their fresh perspectives solving problems that had stumped the elder races for centuries. "Let it be recorded," she said, "that Earth extends special thanks to those who once doubted us most. Your skepticism challenged us to prove ourselves. Your resistance made us examine every detail of law and policy. In opposing us, you helped humanity demonstrate exactly why we deserved our place among the stars." The Chamber's mood lifted as former adversaries found common ground in their shared future. The Silicon Collective and quantum intelligences began collaborating on new computing paradigms. The Chlorids and plasmaform species discovered their opposing perspectives created perfect solutions to stellar engineering challenges. The stars themselves bear witness, the Council pronounced, to the birth of true galactic civilization. Not one race supreme over others, but all races supreme in their own way. Not wisdom hoarded by the ancient, but wisdom flowing freely between all. Alexandra's suit registered the final protocols being encoded into the reformed Concordat's quantum core. The new laws were elegantly simple, stripped of the deliberate complexity that had once hidden inequality behind legal mazes. As the ceremony concluded, a new display appeared in the star field above, a real-time map of technological and cultural exchange flowing between worlds. The visualization showed not a hierarchy, but a network, each species contributing its unique strengths to the greater whole. "Let future generations remember this day," Alexandra declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Not as the end of the old Concordat, but as the beginning of what it always should have been. Not peace through power, but progress through partnership. Not unity through uniformity, but harmony through diversity. The assembled species, once divided by artificial barriers of age and achievement, stood together under the light of 1 billion stars. They had learned the greatest lesson humanity had to teach, that true strength lies not in claiming superiority, but in admitting when it's time to change.